Now, according to the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, they have confirmed that 15 people were on board at the time. We know that 3 prison guards were there and 12 prisoners, all male. 5 were transported to Medical Center Hospital and are listed in critical condition, and the rest dead on the scene. First responders are on the scene, as you can see, pulling out the bodies, looking through the wreckage of this tragedy. Investigators are combing through the crash site as we speak. Now, let's take a look at a wider view. Here is the scene. You can really see the devastation in this shot, an unbelievable shot, exclusive footage here, as the bus went over the overpass this morning, landing on a UPS rail car as it was passing on the tracks below, causing, as you can see, all the packages to be scattered over the crash site. Now, this crash occurred around 8 o'clock this morning, and it was during the morning commute on Interstate 20, 15 miles from Odessa near Penwell at mile marker 103, causing both the eastbound and the westbound lanes to be closed. We do know that this prisoner transport bus was en route from Abilene, the Middleton unit, to El Paso to the Sanchez unit. And CBS 7's Sarah Strackhouse has been on the scene of this horrific crash all morning long. Sarah, what do you know at this time? What does the scene look like?
Krista, we're in front of the train where law enforcement says that the bus actually came over the overpass and slammed into. Now, take a look. I'm going to step out of this frame for a minute. Take a look at this train behind me. You can just see how intense the impact must have been. It looks like it's 2 separate cabs that have been broken up, torn to pieces by this wreck. It looks like they're UPS. On the side, we can see UPS signs. There's boxes all over. Everything, has been unwrapped, falling out. You can just see how hard this must have hit. Now, we're actually a half a mile down. Take a look at some video. We're half a mile down from where the wreck actually happened. Law enforcement said that the bus came over, like I said, came over the overpass. It was carrying 15 people off of I-20 near Penwell, and it hit the moving train. The wreck killed 2 correctional officers as well as 8 inmates. DPS says that the bus was traveling from Abilene to El Paso. Now, from this accident, a number of crashes happened right after. There was one vehicle that was rolled over. It looked like there was another vehicle that had a flat tire. There's debris everywhere. You can actually see law enforcement has been working around the clock right now, trying to get any debris picked up. Some of the video that we actually have seen and some of the scenes we've seen are too graphic to show on camera, but there is a ton of rubble and just everyone's picking through it right now, trying to find out. If you're driving in the area, make sure you're careful. Law enforcement says that icy roads and slick road conditions were a contributor to this accident. Make sure to give yourself extra time if you're traveling in this area off of 104, off of I-20. There's a lot of traffic heading up to this area. Make sure that you're driving cautious. Give yourself, like I said, give yourself a lot of extra time. Now live in Penwell, Sarah Strackhouse, CBS 7 News. Back to you, Krista.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Now, our team coverage continues with Tatum Gwynn, who is live at Medical Center Hospital, where the 5 survivors were taken. We understand from the Odessa American that the 5 are in critical condition. Tatum, what's the very latest?
Krista, we just received a status update on the 5 survivors of the crash that are here at Medical Center Hospital. At this time, we do know that 4 of those victims are in critical condition and the 5th is in serious condition. We do know that the hospital is continuing to be on a controlled access. And what that means is that several doors are locked to give the doctors and other hospital staff room to work and give those patients the best treatment possible. No more information has been released. We're still waiting to see what kind of injuries that those survivors sustained in that crash. We will be here to bring you the very latest. For now, reporting live in Odessa, I'm Tatum Gwynn. Krista, back to you.
7 Sarah Strackhouse has been on the scene of this horrific crash since early this morning. She joined us now live. Sarah, what do we know and what does the scene look like at this point?
Jay, right now crews are in cleanup mode. They are very active behind me, as you can see. If you take a look over my shoulder here, you can actually see they just pulled the bus out from the train tracks. Law enforcement said around 7:30 this morning, a Texas Department of Criminal Justice bus was traveling from Abilene to El Paso with 15 people.
Jay Tatum, as you can imagine, this is a very fresh and painful loss. Now, this family wants to stress that regardless of a person's background, in this case an inmate, they leave behind family and loved ones. Tears pour out after an Odessa family learns 35-year-old Jeremiah J.R. Rodriguez died in today's prison transfer tragedy.
He was a real good fisherman. That's one thing I always remember is me and him and my other brother. We would go to the lake and we'd have the best time. Those are my best memories of him.
The family gathers to remember a son, brother, and father. What would you want people hearing about this tragedy to remember about your dad?
Not to judge him based on where he was, and understand that he was my pops, and we had people here that loved him and that cared for him, and just to understand our love for him instead of looking at the things he'd done.
JR's son has a simple message for his now late father.
I love him. And I'll be with him when it's my time. Just to watch over me, and I'll talk to him every day at night, every chance I get. Just let him know I love him, and I'm gonna watch my little sisters, take care of my mom.
Jay Tatum, the family tells me they got the call from DPS informing them of their son's death at about noon today. Within about an hour, ironically, a parole officer called them to arrange his release. Now, we've been unable to confirm any names yet, but there is a hotline. We put it there on your screen, 325-548-9075. If you had any inmates, any loved ones in the Middleton prison unit, you can call that number and check on their status. We'll continue to track this story. For now, live in the newsroom, Matt Rist, CBS 7 News.
Tragedy in the Permian Basin. 10 people are dead after a bus carrying prisoners and officers slides off of an overpass and into an oncoming train near Penwell.
Tonight at 10, we've learned the names of the 8 prisoners and 2 guards who died in today's tragic crash. Those prisoners, minimum security offenders. And the 3 guards had more than 18 years or more of service with the Department of Criminal Justice.
The crash happened this morning just after 7:30. The prison transport bus left the Middleton unit in Abilene early this morning.
They headed west on Interstate 20 on their way to the Sanchez unit in El Paso when they hit an overpass near Penwell. The bus slid off the bridge and onto a train passing underneath. That's where
CBS 7's Matt Rist joins us live right now. And Matt, we understand that investigators at this moment remain on the scene. Is that true?
Jay Tatum, Union Pacific remains on scene here tonight, but things have gotten a little bit quieter. We've even seen trains crossing. But one thing is clear, that this tragic event for many of these investigators was something unlike they've ever seen before.
I haven't seen this, and it's pretty horrific. I mean, that's all I can say.
Federal and state agencies combed the scene where a state prison bus flew off the interstate, killing 10 people.
The bus went airborne into the concrete culvert over here on the side, and once he hit that, he struck the train.
The bus collided with a UPS mail train. Boxes exploded across the scene, leaving behind wreckage as investigators tried to pinpoint the cause of the crash.
Again, this is still under investigation. We do know at the time of the crash weather was the contributing factor at this point.
Crews pulled the bus out from the train tracks late this evening. None of the passengers, except for the driver, were wearing seat belts.
Offenders are being transported. They are handcuffed together. Right hand to left hand of the offenders sitting in the seats on the bus. No one is handcuffed to the bus itself, but right hand to left hand, they're sitting in the bus, and they are sitting behind security cages where they cannot get up towards the correctional officer who is driving the bus.
Jay, Union Pacific officials tell me they will be here throughout the night monitoring. Cleanup crews will be here tomorrow to get some of that debris out. Also, importantly, the National Transportation Safety Board will be looking more closely into the cause of this accident tomorrow.
This was headed from Abilene to El Paso today.
Now, Jay, we do know that this was a routine minimum security transport. We were told by an official earlier today that all of these inmates on board were serving about 2 years. They all had about 2 years left to serve. We're going to continue to track this story. I'm live outside Odessa with team coverage. Matt Rist, back to you.
Matt, thanks. 5 people made it out of the bus crash alive, 4 inmates and 1 correctional officer.
CBS 7's Tatum Gwynn has been at Medical Center Hospital all day, where she spoke with doctors who treated the survivors. Tatum?
Jay, Tatum, when you look at the images, it's hard to believe anyone survived this crash, let alone 5 people.
And in this situation, all lives were saved that arrived to the emergency department.
5 lives out of 15 were spared today after a bus transporting prisoners flew off a bridge on Interstate 20 and crashed into a moving train. An emergency that had Medical Center Hospital staff ready and waiting for whatever may come their way.
We are ready for this. We're ready for this because you have to rely on your years of training.
Today, that training paid off. The MCH team saved 38-year-old correctional officer Jason Self and 4 inmates. 22-year-old Terry Johnson, 34-year-old Remigio Pineda, 22-year-old Damian Rodriguez, and 37-year-old Hector Rivera.
There has to be one voice, one central command, and everybody has to follow this. Maximum lives can be saved that way.
Tonight, at the very least, 5 families can hold on to hope their loved ones are still hanging on. Jay, Tatum, tonight we know that Johnson, Pineda, and Rodriguez are in critical condition, and Rivera is listed in serious condition. Officer Self was transported to a Lubbock hospital where he's listed in critical condition. For now, reporting live in the newsroom, I'm Tatum Gwynn, CBS 7 News.
Before the victims' names were released, dozens of parents and family members waited for a phone call that said their loved one was safe.
CBS 7 sat down with 2 families this afternoon with 2 very different outcomes. Lauren Landman joins us now with that story. Lauren?
Jay, Tatum, we received multiple calls, emails, and messages asking if we had a list of those who were involved. Unfortunately, we were waiting as well for almost 12 hours before the names were released. One family we spoke with lost a father, son, and husband today, and just hours after they heard the news, a corrections officer mistakenly called to schedule his release. It took hours for Terry Baldock, a mother of an inmate at the Abilene Middleton unit, to find out if her son was involved in the fatal bus crash this morning.
It's just a waiting game.
Not knowing where he was headed, Terry was only informed that her son was transported early this morning.
I don't know details, and that's the hardest part, is not knowing.
Thankfully for Terry, after hours of worrying and dozens of phone calls, news finally came that her son was indeed transported, but traveled north towards Dallas. Sadly, not all families got the same news. Just 15 miles away from the crash site, one Odessa family is left coping with the loss.
My dad's gone.
Noel Lozano is the son of one of the inmates killed in the early morning accident. Jeremiah Rodriguez was the father of 3 children.
I'm gonna watch my little sisters, take care of my mom.
The family says the loss is, of course, difficult, but what makes it even harder is knowing Jeremiah was scheduled to be released to return home to his family in just a few weeks.
We've been talking about it for the last few weeks, and JR's getting out. He's about to get out, and we were kind of excited, you know, to see him.
Not to judge him based on where he was, and understand that he was my pops, and we had people here that loved him and that cared for him.
Of course, there are 9 other families mourning tonight. We have a full list of all of those involved on our website, CBS7.com. In the studio, I'm Lauren Landman, CBS 7 News.
He loved to ride. He loved to be with his buddies. That was probably his first love, probably until I came into his life.
For Donna Davis, it's her first time back on the Harley since she lost her husband. Correctional officer Chris Davis was killed in Wednesday's tragic prison bus crash.
We did a lot of traveling. I always told Chris, you know, I don't want to be one of those people that when we retire we have all this money and then get diagnosed with something bad. Let's live it now, and if you know what happens, we plan for the future, but you know we're not going to live for the future, and we did. I can honestly say I have no regrets.
Dozens of family and friends gathered to remember Chris at his Abilene home.
I'm going to miss the rides. with him. It was also my passion. He's the one that got me riding. Great guy. Give the shirt off his back for you. Loving. He always had that stone face about him, but he was always soft inside.
A family proud of his work as a corrections officer.
It's a thankless job that they do, and people that aren't there don't understand. And I had no clue, and there's no way to know unless you're there.
She still remembers her final words to her husband.
I do remember before I went to bed, I left this note out for him, and I always would set notes by his coffee cup. No matter what, I mean, this was the last thing he saw from me, and he knew. And he knew I loved him, and I know he loved me. I mean, there was no question about that. But it never hurts to have a little reminder.
A silver lining in a difficult road ahead. In Abilene, Matt Rist, CBS 7 News.